Hi Luna, thank you guys for having me.
Okay. Hello, everybody. We're going to be doing the interview for the Love Nikki creator, Iri. She has her own channel where she uploads guides, cost breakdowns, a bunch of stuff. It's very versatile for basically any creator who wants to get into Love Nikki, or anybody who just generally wants information about it. And it's just something that's really nice to have. And I know that when I was a new player, like 2 years ago or something, it really helped me get into the swing of knowing how to play Love Nikki. So it's a very valuable thing for newer players especially, but just people in general.
Oh,
So.
thank you so much.
Okay, we'll get into the questions now. So, what is your favorite suit from the game? Any game?
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. So the suit that like instinctively comes to mind is Bunny Magician. Even though there have been suits after that that I'm also very impressed by, but for some reason the answer that immediately pops into my mind whenever I'm asked about favorite suits is Bunny Magician. I think it's just because back when it came out, the pose really left an impression on me because of how lively it looked. Just and also because the colors, even today, they're not very common. It's kind of a pastel greenish colors, and normally we have more like pinks and blues and stuff. So that always, I think, the impression it left on me still carries into today, and it was one of my avatar suits for a long time. So that's the favorite suit, even though it kind of changes depending on which period, because there's like always new suits coming out from the Chinese server. But I think like impression wise, there's yet to be one that overwrites Bunny Magician. So yeah.
Okay. Who is your favorite / least favorite NPC and why?
Oh, okay, that's a great question. Lore related. Oh, okay. So it used to be like strictly related to Love Nikki, but ever since I started playing Shiny Nikki, I was pretty impressed with the lore there, especially in relation to Love Nikki's slower start. If a player doesn't know, or a listener doesn't know, the Shiny Nikki storyline gets started right off the bat. Like it just goes into it. It doesn't do the whole, oh, we're in another world and this is this. Everyone's like, battling with clothes introduction that Love Nikki has to do. So as a result, the characters are also like, they sound like they have more purposes and goals in Shiny Nikki. So I know this is like a long answer now, but I really like Leonid, which is Leonid is I have a feeling that's going to be the official English translation, because he's a very complex character. So for someone who doesn't follow the Shiny Nikki storyline, you probably have no idea who that is, but it's essentially like the greatest designer / stylist in Mirrorland's history, and the cause of a lot of things that are happening in the story, such as the Blood Curse. And I know in Love Nikki we talk about the True King, but Leonid dates back like way before the True King, and he's not purely like good or evil, because some of the things he does, they're very questionable. But at the same time, as you get into the story, you see like his rationales and also his principles. So I think that's like very engaging, because basically this guy's right. It's just like you don't entirely agree with him most of the time, but his reasons are pretty solid. So that's why I feel like he's a very interesting character. As for least favorite, that's kind of hard to say. because to me, there's like, I don't really dislike any NPCs. So I think by being least favorite is just more like they aren't as memorable. But that doesn't mean like I hate them. It's just that they don't immediately come to mind whenever like I do a mental search for storylines and character development in my head. But there's like nothing really wrong with the different characters, even the antagonists, who do like
The
really
evil
bad
stuff.
stuff. Yes, exactly. And also it's kind of hard to make an absolute conclusion because the storylines themselves are still going. So
yeah. So maybe some characters haven't really been introduced as much as others.
yeah, exactly. And then they can always expand on like a really random NPC and then make their storyline like really robust and just complicated later on. Yeah, like once they draw a suit, they're like, So yeah, you understand.
What is something the LN community does that stands out to you? Nice people, nice SCs, playing methods, etc.
Oh, okay, yeah. So all of the above a little bit. I know that's kind of like the boring answer, but it's true because without the player communities, honestly, this game wouldn't be as long standing. Like I didn't think it was gonna make it this long if it weren't for people communicating like out of the game about what they make in the game and just their various interactions. Because otherwise, like our game is not very complex, to be honest. Like if you compare it to some AAA games with like really complex battle mechanics, ours is literally you just tap and put on clothes, right? But I mean, the inventiveness of players is definitely one thing, but to be the players sharing their creations with one another is, I think, the other aspect that really keeps the game going. And I do know that compared to the Chinese server, the LN community, I do want to say like nowadays the SC community is probably more active on the LN side, and that is because the CN's SC was shut down for like a pretty good whole year. So a lot of players like who were really into SC and creating like these fantastic entries just got really put off by that. So, not everyone waited for SC to come back on CN like for a whole year. Right. So there's definitely I've noticed a shift ever since that super long shutdown. Because Ellen never had to go through that. So all of the like enthusiasm and creativity of players were able to be released to their full potential. So that does stand out to me. Like even now on the CN community, I see a lot of CN players praising Ellen's SC entry. So I feel like that's something that we should be really proud of. It's really funny because sometimes they would show an entry and I'll be like, oh, I know that player. Like I Dr. Instagram. So yeah, and then I guess playing method, it is a little bit different because for CN, our game is 5 years old, whereas for LN, it's like 3-ish. And so a lot of CN players these days, their focuses are different. And there's also Shiny Nikki on the Chinese side to, take away their attention. So in terms of playing methods, I do want to say that like for LN, it's I think players are at least getting more detail oriented, whereas on CN, they're also super detail oriented, and we have been doing it for half a decade. They also have like more freebies, but I think elements like that just dictates how players approach the game, especially for players who are more budget constrained, because it's easier on CN to get free stuff. Like that's just I can't even sugarcoat that compared to LN. So yeah, I think those are the differences that I can think of without talking for another hour just on this question. Thank you, and feel free to share your thoughts too. It's really nice to like hear your thoughts or just like have interaction. So don't feel like I have to be the only one talking.
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, I definitely agree with you. Like, I've made a bunch of friends specifically from, like, SC, like, Iris Frey or Crystal or even Luna. Like, I've known Luna for, like, a year just because, like, we communicated and we had some same interests in SC and stuff. And, you know, we talked about it. And so it's really just, I think it's just a really nice thing because even after you maybe leave the game or something like that, you will still have that connection with that friend. So it's not. I think a lot of something that's hard for a lot of players, especially the ones who don't specifically like join the Instagram community, is that when they leave, it's kind of like, oh, well, what am I gonna do now? But like while you have the Instagram community, you can like make friends with people. So it's like you also have that experience coming out of it, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. No, I totally agree. And I think that's what differentiates Love Nikki a little bit from other games, because I've been in other games where pretty much making friends is essential because y'all are like trying to take down a boss, and it's these choreographed and very specific actions that a group of people have to take, and that's how you like, you know, get your group together. Whereas on Love Nikki, like you said, people make friends over SC or even like on Instagram, and like you don't really have to talk as much. I feel like you can, you know, let your artwork do the talking. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I personally enjoy too. So yeah, I'm totally agreeing with you on that.
What's your favorite collab suit or collab event?
Oh, like the existing ones, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Right. Let's see. We've had a couple, and to be honest, I like the free ones on CN. I don't really like the paid ones, even though I know like my own videos talk about their items, but I consciously try to like do both pros and cons. And there's a reason for that, and that's because I honestly don't really like all the pieces and all the existing collabs so far. I don't think their price to item ratio is justified. There are silver linings to that, and some collabs like the Barbie one, the blue one. That one is like strangely popular on the Chinese server. Like you see players making edits using that blue seat, like the throne-ish with a Barbie with a really cat eye looking. So that's like used a lot on the CN community. And but personally for me, I really prefer like the Forbidden Palace collab on the Chinese server that unfortunately I don't think Elton will get, just because the Forbidden Palace is like the most representative cultural heritage site of China. So I don't think the palace themselves would be willing to like pretty much sell themselves to more operation. Right, yeah. So that's a shame. I mean, like I understand where they're coming from though. But yeah, like that one, everything is free, and the suits are pretty like the extravagant suits are still like they measure up to today's standard, and players call them. There were 2 rounds too, so before the second round came, like no one knew that there was going to be a second round, so there were requests for those suits every day under the official channels. So yeah. How about yourself?
I mean, I don't really have an opinion on collab suits. I have them, but it's like the Barbie suit, like they're okay, they're decent. They're not like compared to other suits, it's like okay, that's kind of mediocre. But it's also like that aspect of it's a lot like pressure, especially to like V players. I've found personally that's like, oh, I'm a V player, I should have the most, you know, sought out suits or something like that. If that you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like kind of like a pressure to have the suit, because like if you don't, it's like, oh, well, I'm this V level, why don't I have this fancy suit to match with my V level?
Oh,
You
yeah.
know what I mean?
And then exactly, that's especially for completionist players too. Just
Oh,
like
yeah.
the statement that these suits are never coming back. Like that's so powerful, and I almost want to say like it's borderline unethical.
Yeah, like it's scary because it's like, oh, well, if I don't get these suits, like, what if I want them later on in like the game and like I don't have them, or like, what if I see someone make an outfit with them and then it's so pretty and cute, and then I don't have that item to make that outfit?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly. And I almost feel like it's kind of the collabs. They were good introduction, like concept-wise, you know, to combine and bridge two different audiences and fandoms. But at the same time, I feel like you said, because of this pressure and the fact that the developers can just put out a statement saying that, oh, these are never coming back, you better get this week. That gives them like almost kind of a leeway to be not as detailed as like a Hell event. Just because they know that people are like the pressure will end of volume 2, or maybe even volumes 3 and 4, just because that's like kind of an overarching Nikkiverse setting. But
Yeah.
But I think the overarching Nikkiverse lore concepts are a lot more mature than just LN's by itself. Like, because I think LN, when it was developed, we probably didn't have that expansive of a worldview in mind. It's, they focus on the fun first, but it was only like in the recent years where the writers have been tying all the pieces together and putting out logical reasons behind why certain phenomena happen. And I'm kind of I guess, reader who prefers that style of storyline more. But I think Nikki's development is one that kind of exemplifies that. I mean, of course, there's like a lot of different, there are like side routes, or routes and storylines that are so expansive. They can be like a game of their own, like all the cloud lore. But I do feel like the one that has the most emotional impact to me personally would be Nikki's own adventure and development. I'm really glad players are asking about the lore in general.
I think that's something that makes the Nikki games different than other games, especially Dress Up games, where it's like it's such a complex, like, even like the suits, they have their own stories, even if not related to the big picture. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's something that's like, it's like really nice, because then you get like an emotional connection to the suits. And you're like, oh, that's sad, or like, oh, that's good.
Yeah, and there's like a lot of different or hidden plot twists in those suit descriptions, like you said too. And it's like pretty fun for players to read and figure that out. I know it's not always the most appreciated and most looked forward to content, because to some players they just don't care, like, which is totally fine, because you can't force people to read what they don't want to, especially when the translation is so janky because of the character limits. A lot of the actual like well writtenness of lore is lost just because of the language differences. Like, you can squeeze a lot of content and what you want to say in Chinese with only a few characters, but you just can't do that in English. And there's how much text you can put into a text box on the English server. So I don't blame people if they're not interested too. But like you said, I do think it's a plus for our game, and something that I think, like I said before, that we can be proud of, because like it's a differentiation between us and other games. Yeah.
Out of all the servers you've played in, which one is the most fun to play in?
Oh, okay. So for me, like, I hear a lot of players talk about the like VN or KN and the newer servers IN, but like personal experiences wise, I've been mostly on LN and CN, and I do have to say that CN is more fun, not because anything like that's so drastically different in mechanics, but just because the CN publisher is a huge company, Tencent, and they have a lot more clout with the creators, Paper Games, about how to optimally run certain things when it comes to like pricing agreements, etc., and keeping like recharges spaced out instead of overwhelming the player. And I think like overall that makes it feel like a less pay to win game. I know that's like contradictory. I just said, I'm a B15 player on LN, B13 on CN. And I'm in the, like, I know we've talked about the V group briefly, but I do know that the amount of welfare that the Chinese server gets, like, that makes you forget how much monetary contributions is behind the game. So I think there's that, but like community-wise, definitely like both sides are excellent and really welcoming and fun to interact with. So there's no difference in that. like except for when it comes to what each server values in terms of aesthetics. Yeah, but so I think that's why, like, I prefer to be on CN. Like, I have both open all the time, but the policy differences are pretty, like, obvious. But I do want to say that it's not because that's honestly not because one server is favored. It's more because CN is older and it's a home server. And also, not a lot of players know this, but Paper Games essentially is behind our server's operations too. I mean, we have Elex as a publisher, but Elex is a lot smaller than Tencent. Like, they can't even compare, right? So pretty much, like, if Paper tells Elex to do something, I don't think they have a lot of, they can push back that much. On what we want to do.
They can't like move around or anything.
Yeah, and if Paper like really wants to give us something super expensive, and Elex can provide feedback from players as much as they can, but Paper does have the final say. So I mean, like, Elex is paid to be the publisher, and that's part of their job. But just 100%, like, if you view the whole operations chain, that's, I think, from what I've understand, that is why certain decisions seem to hit Elton more, like, unfairly almost. But it's a more complex issue than people, I think, realize. I mean, people, I just mean like the more players who aren't as well versed as in the server environment and interactions, but they pick it up. Like, everyone picks it up really fast. So I'm probably repeating a lot of what you and people already know.
No, you're fine. Why did you download LN? Was it advertisement, friends, or looking for a dress-up game? / how did you come across Miracle Nikki and start playing?
Oh, okay. So that was like so long ago. I honestly don't think I remember. I think I saw like an ad somewhere. If you don't know, like, the really, I think, absurd, like, funny, really outlandish ads that Elton has, like, some of it is applicable to CN.
Oh yeah.
That type of weird marketing. I guess that's what they go for, like, grabbing your attention. But it was, like I said, such a long time ago. I think I was just stressed from school, and then I saw, like, oh, pretty clothes. Let's do this. No, this is Miracle Nikki. For Elton, a lot of players were pretty keen on, when a new server opens, etc. So there were like a little bit of talk within the scene community of like, oh, who wants to go to this other player? Now, like, I'm kind of like, I don't have to go through VPN unlike a lot of other Chinese server players. So I was like, oh, I'll just like try it. I actually wasn't too devoted to like and like I didn't expect to dump that much time and resources in it first because I already have a scene account. But like you said, because of a lot of the friends that I made, like, I started playing more and more, and now my Ellen account has a higher V level than my CN account. so that's the background.
Yeah, I personally, I found the game via the ads. I remember watching them maybe like in mid 2017, and I was like, oh, that looks interesting, but I wasn't able to get anything because like my phone was all like backed up with storage because of other things. So I think in 2018 of August, I went to school and we had like these like laptops and stuff, and I downloaded it, and so that's how I got into it, and then I was able to get it on my phone, and then it just kind of spiraled from there.
Whoa, yay, yeah, I'm glad it worked out. Otherwise we wouldn't like, have you, so I guess the ads worked. In those instances.
It tends to be the ads.
Yeah.
I don't think the ads that I got, or the ads, I remember they would play consistently, were never like as outlandish as some other people. Like, it was literally just like dress up game. But like I know that other people like it's like just so outlandish now.
Yeah, and I know people definitely pointed out to the developers before too, but maybe they thought it's working and bringing people. And I mean, you probably saw like an App Store one, right? I think that's what I had too. Like the App Store ones tend to be more toned down and cuter than the game actually is. Then the video ones floating around online, they're pretty hilarious. I think like they're like trying to top their past efforts once in a while. Like we'll get a new one, and then like it's even more peculiar than before.
Yeah, definitely. What aspect of Love Nikki do you appreciate the most?
Oh, okay. I do really like the art. Like, you know how just players, we get bored once in a while, but whenever there's a new, I guess, like how event suits, the posters, at least the posters, they're always very engaging and then just inspirational and like the art quality, right? And I feel like that just immediately piques at least my personal interest again whenever I see them. Because I've been playing.
Oh, sorry, you can go on.
Oh no. Go ahead. I think like there's a lag in Discord, so if I like cut you off, like that's not because I want to. It's because I literally can't gauge when finishing you.
Yeah, no, but they've definitely gotten better over the years, like budget-wise. Like it's weird because like they used to just be like showing the suit a little bit, you know, a few graphics. Now they're like full-on movie trailers.
Yeah, and like the different, I guess, half or animation on specific parts, like the newest how event on the Chinese server had just the wings swimming. I think I'm really glad they added that because otherwise like it wouldn't feel as refreshing. Yes, and but yeah, that's the aspect that like I guess captures me the most, and that's why I totally understand when players criticizes the anatomy. I know we all try to be nice and respectful, and I always talk about how we should be respectful to the artist. But the flip side of that is because the flip side of that is that we have people essentially selling their art for a lot of money. I know that the artists don't get it, but the business operation is set up where people are paying dollars for pics, right? So I do feel like it's fair to criticize when the anatomy of something is like, just obviously and blatantly off. So and it's funny because I was just talking to other players yesterday about how pretty much all the servers that I know like have been providing feedbacks to the developers and telling them that these legs are too long. They just don't look right, but we don't really know why they haven't fixed it yet. So I'm definitely like I feel people's pain when it comes to that. So that's just like the side effect of playing this game to appreciate its art. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean I can definitely see. I mean maybe I can definitely see why it would bug some people, like especially like with the dancing suits. That's like a type of person who like puts a lot of effort into being a dancer. So like specific things like that where like it's someone's like profession and like the love of their life. Like I have a friend who's a dancer and like she plays the game and she's like, oh my god, this is so horrible, like what is going on with the suit, like this is not how that goes. So it definitely depends on the person. I guess like with like the new Ruin suit, the Lifetime suit, like I guess that like the anatomy of the legs are like, oh my god, but also it's like, that's not someone's like profession to be a Ruin suit. So it's kind of definitely like it differs on like the suit and like stuff like that. But I definitely saw like a lot of like backlash with that one dancer suit from like the dancing community in LN. You know what I mean?
Is it the red one, like the new one?
The butterfly one.
Oh yeah, okay, the ballet one. Yeah, for sure. I have had a ballerina friend literally tell me that like that's not how your feet would be, and it's just like it's really physically painful to them almost to see that, and kind of like I totally understand that. Mm-hmm.
If you like love something so much and then you see something that you love, like LN, put effort into making something related to the thing that you like, but then they screw it up in a way, it's almost like, well, did they really even like look into it, like look into how this goes or that goes? Do they even really care? Are they just trying to exploit it on that? Like you trying, especially like things that you enjoy and that you love and that you spend so much time into, it's like, oh my, but do they actually appreciate it, or are they just trying to exploit it? Or like Luna, her at the violin suit, you know?
Oh, you used to, okay. But no, that means you are like more knowledgeable than me and players who didn't play. But I've definitely received a lot of comments myself, just like when I post the suits, about like the different intricacies and the things that the suits doing wrong, like the way Nikki is improperly playing, and I'm pretty sure like the players are 200% right, because I know, because the Nikki suits tend to even mess up like traditional Chinese instruments. It was really funny to see the criticisms on those, because a lot of Chinese players play those, and it will be like a really obvious mistake of like the instrument is not in the right orientation to begin with. So like you said, that really makes you question just how much research was put into like finishing the product, or if it was just, you know, built to get some quick bucks out of the concept. Yeah, but I mean, either like I do appreciate the level of details and like, you know, all the colors, but those are the things that, like you said, definitely stand out, and I feel like the game as a whole can improve. And it's not just in Love Nikki too. It's
definitely.
So I mean, hopefully they do something about it in the future instead of I guess showing like that lack of knowledge. So yeah, no, that's a really good point to bring up. So I'm really glad you mentioned it. And Luna too. I love people who play violins. I just think like they are so like cultured and elegant and create like extremely beautiful music.
Like, what's something you'd like to tell new players about Love Nikki?
Oh, new players? Okay. I know I said this before, but I think like my views may have changed since the last time I talked about it. But I would definitely, like, the more obvious, I guess, fact or tip would be to not like rush too much of your real money. I know, like, as a Hy-Vee player, saying that might sound a little bit counterintuitive, but even as someone who has a lot of resources, I think it would help if you know what to, like, which bucket to put your money in first, because some things are like at the very end, because on the Chinese server, a lot of players I know, they all became completionists after like 5 years, just because by nature there's not much else that they can, I guess, set as a goal. So at one point or another, a lot of players like all turned into completionists and just like got really into getting or filling the holes in their wardrobe, right? But you realize that even for that purpose, there are things that like you may more optimally use your money on than, I guess, just like purchasing a bunch of packs right off the bat. And I do want to say that, like, for someone's own experience, it might be like if something like an aspect of the game ever stresses you out too much, and I know this personally, like it's fine to like step away from something for a while. Like I would play other games occasionally, and then just not think about Love Nikki for a while, and I feel like that helps a lot because it will put you in like a better mood when you interact with people too. And like we said at the very beginning of the interview, like that's a huge part of the whole Nikki experience almost. I know these are really general, but I think concepts like this would really help a player, like going in knowing what.
Oh yeah, it's still important, definitely. Like in retrospect, it's like definitely has like higher V levels. It's like, oh, you know, you look back, you're like, why did I spend my money on that? Like I didn't need to. You know what I mean? It's like, because like when you're a new player, you want everything because you have nothing, and then when you have it, it's like, oh, this isn't that good.
Right.
I didn't really think about it.
Yeah.
I just bought it.
Yeah, that's right. You put it really well. Because now I have to add in the complexity of having like another game lined up that's probably going to get like a global server anytime soon. So like with that in mind, do you really want to, you know, fully like go all into a game that's already like 3 years old on the global server and 5 and then it's going to be 6 years old on the other server? Because I like since it's like a lot of time has passed since I last gave like tips to new players in the interview setting, because the last time I talked more about the numbers and about like, you know, specific things like pulling stuff and how the costs work out. But I think the added point here that I feel like would be more valuable is to know that servers do shut down. Like in Love Nikki, just specific Love Nikki servers, and also the previous game, Nikki World Traveler, like they're pretty much in the soft shutdown. Like they get a few new suits in a year. So one day LN is going to go on that route, I feel like, where they would keep the server open, but there wouldn't be any new updates, and then a lot of the content will be going to Shiny Nikki. I'm not trying to like fearmonger, but I just I'm like really scared to, I guess, scare off players, but just trying to be complete and in talking about what I have observed like all across the whole franchise, right? Because the reality is that other games pretty much just stop getting updates. They're keeping the server open, but it's definitely not like before. And the fact that they're keeping the server open partly has to do with the fact that Tencent has so much money. So I hope that, you know, they can work out some deal if it ever comes to out, and you know, we can at least have the server open where people can play with their existing suits, or have time and effort to get the suits that they never had a chance to get. Because that was part of the deal with the other game. Like they released methods of getting suits that were previously exclusive. And another thing to know is that like for the longest time, the Chinese server asked for a card capture collab, right? People have been asking for it for 2 years. But Shiny Nikki was the one that got the card capture Sakura collaboration event. So that tells you a little bit about the direction that the company is going. And again, it's not something that they should be blamed for, to be honest, because I know Shiny Nikki makes a ton of money. It's a lot more than Love Nikki. And there's also, you know, Mr. Love as from the same company. So just that they're going to have split priorities. So I would almost, like at this point for LN, I would suggest players to enjoy as much content for free as you want. I don't regret my own V level or all of the things that I put into this game, because I feel like I had a very fulfilling experience. It taught me a lot about, you know, I guess, first of all, my own aesthetics, and because you notice trends when you like make a lot of outfits like privately, and then you're like, oh, I did this like 5 times. But also just like talking to different people, because I've never really been in a community where like when you talk, it's not about combat or how to like what the healers should be doing, or what the tank should be doing, or if someone is like performing really bad, how they should be improving. we're like this community is just a lot more relaxed. I know we have our own, like there's going to be episodes that just explodes within the community itself, but I don't think we should discount like everyone just because of those things happening, because I mean we're all people, and like we have different emotions, so those things happen. So I feel like new players shouldn't get scared because of that too.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm saying that, yeah, also because like because some real life friends of mine, when they hear that, like just percentage wise, there's like a lot of girls playing, they're like, oh, I don't want to get into that, I'd rather just focus on a singular task rather than having to deal with people, right? So there are like that might turn some people off and discourage them from trying, but I personally think that new players should still give the game a chance. Just like keep in mind the greater business environment and economic context in mind. So I think that would be how I would summarize all the differences compared to the new player tips I gave. I think it was a year and a half ago. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, it's just kind of like one of those things where it's like I was saying in retrospect, like, did I really need to spend that on that? So it's definitely good for new players to like understand certain things and not get carried away, like you were saying. But especially like towards the end, like where you were saying, like some people just don't want to get into it. And I think it's a nice thing to just try, at least just try it and see how you like it, or like if you like it even, because it's not for everyone, of course, but from what you were saying, like it could be like a nice relax, even if it's, you don't invest your time into it as much as you do with another game.
Yes, yeah, and there's nothing wrong with like stepping away and then coming back. I know I'm repeating myself, but I'm just agreeing with you on that point for sure. So I wanted to focus, I guess, less on the numbers, since that's what I did last time. But there are like aspects, because like the players I know who really love the game, they're talking about the game pretty much 10 hours a day. I know we don't like every hour, but it's like some new players might want to know that that's how much time that other people dedicated into it. But do know that you don't have to, even though I know like various communities have various requirements on Discord, etc., right? Like some communities you have to have a Discord, but just know that those are options. Like you're your own person, obviously.
Definitely.
Cool.
I think that's it.
Oh, okay, great.